All right, everybody, now it is time to preview the 49ers side of the Super Bowl for this Sunday. And joining me, and it's been a long time coming, to have this guy on my show. I think I've been on Richard's show probably about 1,000 times. This is first time coming over here. Of course, you can listen to Richard every single day on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Also, check out the Georgia Alabama Sports Live. They're on Facebook, they're all over the place, covering sports, Georgia and Alabama, high school sports, and all the good stuff. But Richard, I appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I'm used to coming on your show, so we've kind of swapped roles here when we have our sports conversations.
I appreciate it, Philip. Thank you so much for letting me be on your show. I'm ready to talk football. The Super Bowl week, I'm excited.
This is really one of my favorite times of the year, the Super Bowl. I know a lot of people, and I'm not really a big pregame show guy, but I will be Super Bowl Sunday. I like intake off because one, it's the end of the football season, end of the uh, traditional football season. Let me just say that we know it's coming up down the road, but it's a big week. But tell people just since it's your first time coming on my show, so my audience getting to know you. I always share it out when I go on yours. Um, you're in Columbus, but you're 49ers fan.
hmm
What's the origins of that?
Of course. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've always wanted to be a broadcaster ever since I was a little kid, just being in front of the TV and just memorizing the jersey numbers. And I actually started out as a sports writer in high school, wrote for the high school newspaper. Always lived in a big market. Columbus is the smallest market that I have been in, so I knew that I could thrive and pretty much do whatever I want when it comes to broadcasting. But I actually took a little bit of a break because I'm also in the military. I deployed a couple of times. I went to the Defense Information School for military broadcasting, so I did that for 8 years. And I was a broadcasting major in college. I'm really aging myself here because it was 20 years ago. I was the main play-by-play guy for baseball, filled in for basketball, and I loved doing sports talk radio and took a very long break. And then right around 2020, it was pre-COVID. 95.7 ESPN Radio in Columbus had a radio contest trying to look for their next guest host, and I had a couple of auditions, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And that's when I started my podcast, The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I've done it for 4 years now, and I'm getting close to my 800th episode. I've had about 70, 80 guests. I mean, I've had a lot of guests. I mean, you've been on, I got to count, but you've been on at least 20, 30 times. I mean, I always appreciate you coming on my show, and we always have a good time talking. And I just love what you do, Philip. And really, we were talking about like we're kind of in different sports markets. You got the Wiregrass area covered down in Dothan, Alabama, but sometimes our paths will cross. Like in high school football, when Dothan plays Central or Smith Station or Auburn, I got you covered, and I just enjoy just talking sports with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's kind of like how I think we came across each other. I think I saw you on Facebook. You popped up, and I said, "Oh, okay, this is the guy that covers one of the teams I know Dothan's playing." I think you were doing some Smith Station games, or it was Central Phoenix City or Auburn. You were covering them, talking about them, or whatever. So I think that's kind of how our paths crossed. So hey, the crazy thing about high school football in Alabama introduced us to each other. What's your favorite sport to broadcast, though?
Well, by far, it has to be baseball. I mean, I love all the sports. In fact, I got into play by play 2 years ago when the new indoor soccer team for Columbus, the Columbus Rapids, came into existence, and I was offered the play by play job. And I'm not really a soccer guy, but I'm a play by play guy, and I can make any sport sound interesting. But when I was in college, I love the game. I mean, I could actually do a lot of filler, like between pitches. I can paint a picture and tell you a story. I'm like a sports historian, and that's what I love doing is just telling the story of sports. And being in Columbus, I'm proud to be in Columbus. I've lived in Columbus since 2015. There's a lot of history in this city, and I just want to tell that story and share it to other lovers of sports history.
Yeah, so football is my main one, but a lot of guys I ask that baseball is it's a lot of times to go to for a lot of people. Um, but let's jump to this game. the 49ers and the Chiefs. Of course, everybody just heard me chat with Jeff Fedotin, who covers the Chiefs for Believe and Fours. But the 49ers side thing, and he just when I look at this game, I'm not tipping my hat for anybody out there wanting to know. As of this, we're talking right now. I told Richard this off air. I still don't know who I'm picking. I cannot make up my mind. But obviously, though, and well, maybe not obviously, but if you look at these two rosters on paper, I think the 49ers are the more talented team overall. Just they're loaded with talent. Of course, Brock Purdy at quarterback. Well, look, we know he's not the most talented quarterback in this matchup. Anybody, 49ers fan, a neutral fan would say, Patrick Mahomes is, that's the guy. But you look at what they have on this roster: Christian McCaffrey at running back, receivers, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. I take those over any of the Chiefs wide receivers. George Kittle. Now I know Kelsey has played great in the playoffs. I take George Kittle in the regular season over Travis Kelsey this year.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, linebackers, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner up front. Chase Young, Nick Bosa. But just, before we kind of just like dive into the actual matchup, the Chiefs and the 49ers, just what's kind of been like your overall thoughts and opinions of this 49ers team for this season?
Well, they haven't played their best football. In fact, watching those two playoff games against Green Bay and Detroit, it got me nervous, and I was actually very upset by the way they played and saw your Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, just move the ball up and down on the field against the 49ers, and the Packers should have won that game. The 49ers got lucky, and they, once again, NFC Championship, they're down 24-7. Detroit just completely dominates them in that first half. You can't do that in the Super Bowl because Kansas City is going to make you pay. Even though I think the 49ers have not played their best, there was a stretch in the regular season when they beat the Cowboys 42-10, when they demolished the Eagles. I mean, when they beat the Steelers opening day, that I said, yeah, I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFL. They're playing the best right now, but there's been some inconsistency when they've had injuries, when Trent Williams is out. They're not the same team. You saw in that Green Bay game when Deebo Samuel went out, they're not the same team. That is going to be the X factor. There is not a receiver out there like Deebo Samuel. He's a physical, can be a running back. He can do jet sweeps. He can catch for a bubble screen. He can get a 3-yard gain and make it into an 11-yard gain because he is hard to tackle. He is physical. He'll go toe-to-toe with that Chiefs defense. And I think Deebo Samuel's going to have a great game. But this is really the matchup I really wanted, Phillip. And the reason why is because the 49ers should have won the Super Bowl 4 years ago. And it's like now they get their second shot at the Kansas City Chiefs. They were up 20-10. They had the ball. Kyle Shanahan got conservative. Patrick Mahomes threw that bomb on that 3rd and 15 to Tyreek Hill. Well, guess what? The Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. And then they don't have Sammy Watkins either. He threw a big bomb to Sammy Watkins when he burned Richard Sherman. And the Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl 31-20. But the 49ers were so close to beating the Chiefs. Are these two teams different 4 years later? Absolutely. I think the Chiefs have a better defense, but the 49ers have better weapons on offense than they did 4 years ago.
Yeah, you talk about that Packers game, and you really saw the importance of Deebo Samuel in that game. And I remember watching the NFC Championship game and Greg Olson on Fox brought up a point I didn't really think about, and it was really a great piece of information he gave the audience that Kyle Shanahan talked about how when Deebo Samuel went out, pretty much half the playbook 49ers went out the door because they don't have anybody else that can do what he does. So everything that was designed for him, you had to throw it away. So Kyle Shanahan had to come away with almost probably a new game plan from scratch going through the game at halftime. But you're right. And then they've had these first half struggles. I mean, they were up 7-6 in Green Bay, but Green Bay was moving the ball on, settled for field goals and didn't go for field goal one time. And then you said the last game, Detroit Lions 24-7. Richard, I ain't gonna lie to you. I was watching the game at my parents' house. I left at halftime, came back to my apartment. I thought it was over, 24-7. But then I walk into my apartment. I turn the TV and it's 24-17. I'm like, what's going on here? You're right. They can't do that. But what's been up with this rush defense with the 49ers? That's been a struggle. 136 against the Packers. Aaron Jones had a big day there. And then against the Lions, who's really not a dominant run team. They're solid, but they're more, it's more Jared Goff, the passing game. They had 182. And that's kind of concerning because with the Kansas City Chiefs, they want to go with Isaiah Pacheco, who I think is an unsung hero for the Chiefs. Doesn't get a lot getting talked about a lot. So what's been up with that 49ers run defense?
That 49ers run defense has really been the biggest mystery because seeing Aaron Jones and seeing David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs just gash holes. And maybe it's because the offensive line is dominating the line of scrimmage and they are building holes and getting Aaron Jones getting big 8-9 yard runs a carry. Same with the Lions running backs. And I could see Isaiah Pacheco doing that if the 49ers do not fix that defense. Because the 49ers defense that I saw in the regular season has really been inconsistent. There are times where they look like the dominant defense from 2019, but then you see what they have done against some of these teams. I mean, they played amazing against the Dallas Cowboys in the regular season, 42-10. It was just a mismatch because the things that they did well, the Cowboys don't do well. But they have been very inconsistent all year. You remember the 3-game stretch where, Brock Purdy trying to come back and try to win on the road against Cleveland. They end up losing because Jake Moody misses a field goal. Losing to the Vikings when Kirk Cousins just torched that defense. And then when Joe Burrow came into Levi Stadium and Brock Purdy was going toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow when he was healthy for the Bengals, they had no answer. Joe Burrow just torch the 49ers defense. And that's something they need to fix. And I don't know if it has something to do with the defensive coordinator. They did make the move, moving Steve Wilks from the press box down to the sideline. Chase Young has got to show up. He has been quitting on plays. They've been talking about possibly benching him. I think that Chase Young has been a disappointment. I mean, they're finally getting Eric Armstead healthy. I like what Javon Kinlaw's doing. Javon Hargrave has been a free agent acquisition from the Philadelphia Eagles, but really it starts with Nick Bosa. I mean, he had 2 big sacks in the playoffs against the Detroit Lions. Bosa needs to get in the backfield to sack Patrick Mahomes, which is very hard to do because you see Patrick Mahomes escape out of sacks and throw it left-handed and throw it sidearm and doing a jump pass. And, he is just a magician when he's outside of the pocket. And if the 49ers want to win this Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes can't be making those wow plays. I mean, it really needs to be the other way around. It needs to be Brock Purdy that steps up and makes those wow plays if the 49ers want to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, talking about Brock Purdy too. I mean, I've mentioned a couple times in this conversation. I mean, obviously he is the second best quarterback in this game. I mean, I don't think most people will agree with that, but he has been clutch in these 2 playoff games at the end of the games. I mean, the great drive to get the lead against the Packers toward the end. And then what I really liked, what the 49ers did with him, you talked about a few years ago when these 2 teams met. Well, we knew Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't a threat to run the ball. Just he was going to sit in the pocket and throw it. That's just what he is. That's what he was. Brock Purdy had like 50 yards rushing against the Lions, and it wasn't like they were scrambles. They were designed run plays. And I would like to kind of see if they do a little bit more of that against the Chiefs because that's an element of his game we haven't really seen a lot of.
Well, you're right. Brock Purdy gives the 49ers a different element that they didn't have with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that Brock Purdy is a better thrower of the football. He's more accurate. He actually can run better than Jimmy Garoppolo. This has been an upgraded quarterback for the 49ers. I've actually said on my podcast if Brock Purdy does win a Super Bowl, he'll go down as the number 3 all-time quarterback in 49ers history behind Joe Montana and Steve Young. I mean, I honestly feel that the 49ers found their franchise quarterback. I know that there's been a lot of criticism because he was Mr. Irrelevant, that he was the last pick taken in the 2022 NFL Draft. But I'm here to say, I mean, Brock Purdy has proven all the naysayers not only by being 4-1 in the postseason, but winning the playoff games this year and getting the 49ers to the Super Bowl. And I know that there's talks that the 49ers could lose this Super Bowl because of Brock Purdy. I think the 49ers can win the Super Bowl because Brock Purdy does something special in this game. And I think that he is going to silence some critics. But we shall see. The 49ers do have a very talented team. I do think it can go the other way. I think that Brock Purdy could have one of his worst games. I mean, take it back to Christmas. 49ers are playing the Baltimore Ravens. Brock Purdy throws 4 interceptions. Well, the MVP talks completely go away. But you got to remember, yeah, he did make some mistakes in that game. 2 of those interceptions were tipped. And that's because the Baltimore Ravens defense was playing lights out. This Chiefs defense can play lights out. The 49ers are going to have to make adjustments. You cannot allow Chris Jones to get in that backfield. I see him getting in the backfield because, that right side of the O-line for the 49ers is a little weak. I mean, Colton McKivitz, he's okay, but he's not what Trent Williams is on the other side. And Chris Jones has been the most clutch defender in the Super Bowl. I mean, I go back to 4 years ago when the 49ers were trying to score. Like they were up 20-17 in the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo goes into a play action and Chris Jones bats it down. I mean, that's how valuable Chris Jones is. And he could be the difference in the Super Bowl. But it's going to come down to Brock Purdy making plays and making sure that Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, they get touches. Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I really like the weapons. George Kittle. I really like the weapons for the 49ers. But it's going to be just an exciting game. And we'll see how the 2 quarterbacks will face off.
Yeah, Chris Jones 10.5 sacks this year, and I was about to bring up Christian McCaffrey because I just feel like too in the playoffs a little bit with the 49ers, they kind of got a little too pass happy at times, especially against the Packers. But when they do kind of get back to who they are and Christian McCaffrey and running the ball, and then everything just works off of him. I think Kyle Shanahan likes to call Deebo Samuel the wide back. Like he's not a receiver, he's not a running back. He's a mixture of the two. But the Christian McCaffrey part is going to be huge for San Francisco because Kansas City's got the number 2 defense, but their weakness is a run game, which was questionable to me with the Ravens did not capitalize on that in the AFC Championship game. They were throwing it a little bit too much, in my opinion. So, getting that run game going is going to be big for the 49ers.
Yeah, one thing that the Kansas City Chiefs have, they have a very good secondary. If they're able to stop the run, I'm talking Christian McCaffrey gets like 2-3 yards a carry, and you force the 49ers to get into a 3rd and long situation, I would say advantage Chiefs. They can get the 49ers off the field. But if the 49ers have success running the football, that's going to keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. The 49ers want to control the time of possession in this game. They don't want to allow Patrick Mahomes to get drives. Because even if Patrick Mahomes is down by 2 scores, he can get his team back just in a blink of an eye. Although I still am not 100% sold on the receiving core that Patrick Mahomes has, with the exception of Travis Kelce. He was big in that AFC Championship against Baltimore. But Rashid Rice, he's a rookie. He could be a number 1 someday. I still think he's got a lot to learn. Kadarius Toney, I don't trust him in big game situations. He's dropped a lot of passes this year. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, same thing. He has dropped a lot of passes this year. I'm not a believer. I'm not sold on the Chiefs' receiving core. But if there's anybody that can make the receiving core look good, it is Patrick Mahomes. Remember last year when they won the Super Bowl, their number 1 receiver was Juju Smith-Schuster. And Patrick Mahomes proved last year that the Chiefs didn't need Tyreek Hill. And I think that he is going to have an amazing game this year, especially just with the way he extends plays. And the 49ers have got to be on their heels. I mean, because this could be a game where Patrick Mahomes ends up taking over. But the 49ers need to make sure that doesn't happen.
So we've broke this game down. We talked about the 49ers, Brock Purdy, all of it, the big names. What is your prediction for Super Bowl 58 on Sunday?
Well, I could easily go with my heart. Lifelong San Francisco 49ers fan since I was a kid. I witnessed them win 5 Super Bowls. Would love to see them win their 6th Super Bowl. And I actually believe, because they are the favorites, that they are going to figure it out, even though they played terrible. their last two playoff games. I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to get them ready. I love the matchup between Kyle Shanahan going up against Andy Reid. I don't think the blowing leads in Super Bowls is going to haunt Kyle Shanahan. The 49ers are the better team, even though the Chiefs have the better quarterback. And the Chiefs are beatable. This is probably the best shot you're going to get on the Kansas City Chiefs because this is not their most talented team in the Super Bowl. I'm going to say that the 49ers win this game, but it is going to be very close. I'm going to say it's going to be 28-27, as they're probably going to win it on, Brock Purdy has the ball last. I think that toward that fourth quarter, I think the defense is going to control the first half. You're going to see a lot of stops. You'll probably see like a 14-13 game at halftime. But I think that the last couple of drives, it's going to be an exciting Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is going to go down and score, and then I think whoever has the ball last is going to win the Super Bowl. I expect that to be Brock Purdy, and I'm picking the 49ers beating the Chiefs 28-27 to give the San Francisco 49ers their sixth Super Bowl in franchise history. And I'm picking that, but I could understand why a lot of people are picking the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs do win, obviously they're the dynasty, they're the team of the 2020s. It's just because they've been here before. But I'm definitely going to be picking the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, that would be number 6, as you said, tied with the Steelers and the Patriots, which Tom Brady gets credit for all those over there in New England. But it's going to be fun. I think either way, all the predictions look like this is going to be a close game. So it should be a fun game. Been fun having you on, Richard. Like I said, this was long overdue. Having you on my show after all the times I've come over. I've been on yours. But if the listeners and viewers want to check out where can they find you, where can they check out the Sports Beat?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at SportsRichardH. You can also like my Facebook page. Just type in the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. You can also listen to me on WQEE 99.1 FM out of Noonan, Georgia, Mondays through Fridays from 2 to 3. You can listen online on WQEE's Facebook page, and you can also subscribe to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. It's called The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I've been doing it for 4 years. I've had some incredible guests, and I'm approaching my 800th episode, a huge milestone. And I also do a lot of stuff with Georgia Alabama Sports Live. A big shout out to Thrift Behringer. Him and I really live stream a lot of high school sporting events. We had our baseball media day on Sunday, groundbreaking. We're doing high school baseball media days because high school baseball is just around the corner, and we plan on live streaming some high school baseball as well. And I stay busy. I actually called a basketball game last night. I actually had a night off, but I'm back to the grind. I'm calling basketball tomorrow and Thursday. Like the great Josh Pate, who comes out of Columbus, says the grind is a blessing. I just try to mimic his work ethic, just to try to get to that level, because I don't think anybody was as good as Josh Pate done it in the Fountain City. He's the best. I'm here to say, like, with his Late Kick podcast, 24/7 Sports, that's how you do it. That's how you grind and just continue working to be as successful as you could possibly be.
Yeah, absolutely. He has one of the better shows out there, and so do you, Richard. And once again, appreciate the time, and I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the next time I can come on.